like when we run that. So it's only like 3 minutes. All right. We are live on. Geez, where are we live? Okay, I know it's not Facebook. Okay, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter. What's up, Twitter?
Nice.
You guys never
Hey.
Hey.
engage. You just like all. I love Twitter though. If I were not a content creator, I just told you guys about TikTok. I would spend the majority of my social media just on Twitter,
Oh
going through
man.
the streams because it's so interesting. Like just watching people argue, and then you get like really breaking news. Um, and as a content creator, it's like the least platform that I actually use to create, but it's the most to consume, which is
Yeah.
interesting to me.
That sounds about right.
I don't
Yeah.
know how you guys feel about it, but we got
No.
Samantha Anderson.
Yeah.
We got Monica Quitiva. RV Charity Drive says, mind if I share the stream? Of course. You know, how else we're supposed to go viral, RV Charity Drive, if you don't share? Please like, subscribe, comment, share, and put your comments. We're going to get into them. This is, I mean, it could have been 1,000 titles for this one because Samantha and Monica are amazing. And
Thank you.
if you're Guru Nation, you probably have seen them before. But if not, we'll go around and let them introduce themselves, and we're gonna get to the community questions. So put your questions down there in the comments. We'll get to you. This conversation is gonna talk about careers, about the state of the industry, all kinds of things, and really, it's what you guys want. So thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Monica, for coming on. Who wants to go first? Like, brief intro.
Samantha.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So brief intro. So my previous background was entirely not research related, like clinical research related at all, or even STEM. I come primarily from like tourism and costuming and museums. That was my main background. And then my husband, his background is in clinical research. He's spoken to Dan. Feel free to go watch his video. Uh,
Dan is awesome.
yeah, but so my husband Daniel, he basically for years was like trying to tell me like you need to get into clinical research. What are you doing in tourism? I even got a master's in sustainable tourism, and he did the CRA Academy. I saw what he was doing there and was like, okay, actually, this looks very cool. So I made this decision. I don't know if I've ever told either of you this, actually. So November of 2021, okay, not that long ago. It's been almost a year, but not that long ago, really, in the grand scheme of things. I told him, I'm like, okay, you know what? I will sign up for the CRC Academy. I'll do that. Fine. And then I'll see how that goes. And if I like it, I will try to go into the industry. And if I don't like it, then I'll have that for a backup. Right. And then I got on the phone with Monica to sign up. And I was like, oh, this person is amazing. She is so cool. And then I did the CRC Academy, and it was awesome. Within the first lesson with Monica, she mentioned that regulatory is a profession in and of itself. And I actually have my old notebook. I left it in Missouri, but I have the notebook that I use to make notes for our classes. I wrote like regulatory can be a profession. I put like 4 stars around it because I'm like, that sounds cool. What's that? And eventually I ended up working with Dan for Yuma Clinical Trials, which has been awesome. That's been fantastic. And then within only, I don't know what, like a month or 2 months after finishing the CRC Academy, I got hired at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute here in Boston as a regulatory coordinator. So that's my main full-time job now, and I'm loving it. And there's kind of my background there.
Oh,
Sorry,
thank you.
that wasn't
I
that
mean,
short.
I'm glad that you brought that up because, like, there's so many. Like the title is clinical research careers are versatile. The industry is versatile.
Mhm.
Monica and I just got off of 2 Zooms earlier with 2 vendors, 2 huge household names in the industry, and you know they're they're projected tech vendors are projected to take most of the market share in our space. Like most of the R&D spending in the next decade is going to go to tech vendors. And it's a
Hmm.
lot of interesting things of what's happening there. Great to be a part of it, honestly, like to watch it unfold. But I'm glad that Monica brought that up about regulatory as its own career in and of itself. It's so true. So thank you, Samantha. Um, Before we get to Monica, RV Charity Drive said, to be fair, I had zero skills when I went into CRC, former military operations, car sales, and emergency management. So far, I absolutely love CRC. So much to do, learn, and give. It's ever evolving.
Yeah,
Very true.
it's
That's
awesome.
so nice.
Yeah.
Monica, what do you think? Give us an intro. Most people know you, but maybe they don't. Now on LinkedIn, we have like 20 people watching right now, just on LinkedIn. So I'm
Oh,
I'm looking at it here. So
dang.
what do you think, Monica? Like about CRC and how you got started? For those that don't know your backstory.
How did I start as a seer in the industry? That's what you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that was, I mean, that was the luckiest situation in my life because I was living in Australia and decided to move back to United States. And but I did my research of which state was more convenient for me, and I decided California. And but when I came to California, I had it in my mind that I
Mhm.
wanted to work in pharmaceutical. I wanted to be a doctor before, but I mean that's another story. But I had it in my mind that I wanted to work in pharmaceutical, but I didn't know where to start or how to go. I didn't even think about research as much, even though that I had a minor in research in the university. I didn't even contemplate that idea.
Huh.
But then I met as a business part. Well, it was Dan's business partner in the past, and because I speak Spanish, he thought it was a good idea to bring me to their clinic because they needed somebody to translate some things and
Yeah.
also to start doing the patient recruitment. Since I have a background in business and in marketing, it was kind of natural for me to create the strategies and start engaging.
Hmm.
Um, what I was doing, it was, I mean, obviously this was very interesting to me because I was okay. So that's a way for me to enter in the pharmaceutical industry, but I was not even envisioning the whole wall of research, which is much more interesting, is much more fulfilling, and the opportunities that you can find in this industry are endless. So it's like a hidden gem. So when I learned that I was going to get an interview from Dan, Chris, and the PI back then, I started, naturally looking for in. Actually, I never shared this with the public, but I started looking on internet and kind of see if I found any information about the people that I was going to get an interview with. And when I saw that, I almost died. I say, he's the guru. What I'm gonna do? I know
Yeah.
nothing about this. I don't know how I'm going to crush this interview, but I have to do it. So I saw some of his videos. I stalk everything that I could about Dan. Also Chris, the principal investigator, and I tried to read as much as possible about research and everything to be prepared for the interview. And
Hmm.
then when I got to the interview, in the office, there were two clinical research coordinators that, by the way, both of them were IMGs, international medical graduates,
Oh, wow.
that were Dan's CRCs back then.
Hmm.
And then it was me, all of us with accents.
We love IMGs. So my side of the story is like, okay,
Yeah.
Monica, my business partner, Jim Parker, so I love that guy. He's been a friend of my dad before he knew me. Then I got introduced to him. So I've known him at this point, I've known him for 15 years. Like I've known him since I was super young, like in
Wow.
high school. And so we partner with him, and we're a startup. So, like Monica said, we already had two IMGs. We had a very expensive rent because we were right in Irvine, California, right next to John Wayne Airport. Rent couldn't have been higher. So it's like terrible for a startup. Like all these expenses. The reason we partnered with this guy was because he was financing most of it. And the last thing we needed was someone else. So I was actually like, you know, she just shared how
Hesitant.
nervous she was. I was the complete opposite. Like I did not want to be there. I was like, why do we have to do this? I seriously thought Monica was a spy from this guy because he was pushing
Yeah, I
her so hard.
remember that.
He was pushing her so hard. And I was like, Jim, we don't need her, man. Like, if you think I'm stealing money from you, like, it's not true. Like, research takes a while to get revenue going. He's like, no, no, but this lady's phenomenal. I was like, dude, we don't need her right now. But all right, let's do it because he's paying the bills. All right, I'm gonna do it. So I was like totally not into it. And then when Monica started talking, we're like, all right, this could work. Like she sold herself really in that interview. And I was like, all right, I mean, we don't need her. The truth was we didn't need another person there. But if she's going to do just patient recruitment, that means I don't have to do it. So, all right. And I'm not paying for it. So, okay. Thanks, Jim. It's your money, man. Like, so Monica started, and then I quickly, like within that first week, discovered that she's so versatile in her skill set. But I was still, for a year, I thought she was a spy. So I was never myself around her.
What?
Never for a year. You know how like I'm like super chill, like Samantha,
Yep.
like I'm super chill.
Yes.
With Monica, I was like very professional, like very different than I am. For like a year, I thought she was there
Oh.
to audit me and Chris from this dude. I was like, this guy moves like big time. Like this is like some mafia stuff. But it turned out it's not true. I was just super paranoid. And Monica ended up being a great CRC site director, and the rest is history. I mean,
and
LICR.
then
Thank
and
God
then
I
in,
met you, Monica. Thank
no,
God I went
thank
to that lunch.
God. I actually thank God I met you.
I
That
didn't
was
want to
just
go to
like
that lunch though. That's the last thing I wanted to do.
I was super scared.
Yeah, and I
But
was super like not into it.
and then with the CRC Academy, Dan started the CRA Academy, and not so long after that, I started telling him, Dan, let's do the CRC, let's do the CRC, because we were having interns in the clinic, and I
Mm.
was teaching people to get into the industry. So we were having some pre-med students, we were having people that was reaching out to Dan. By that time, Dan was already very popular, and a lot of people was reaching out to him. So we start getting many interns in the clinic, and then I just like, we need to create a program for this. We definitely do.
Yeah.
and
And again,
and
I
I
was
kept on.
skeptical. This time not about Monica. I no longer thought she was a spy, but I was like, well, why do we need CRC Academy? Who's going to pay for it? Unless sites pay for it, it doesn't make sense. We already have CRA Academy, and a lot of our CRA students end up being CRA. I was just like, I don't know if it was negative, but I was very like pragmatic about it. Like, why do we need it? But Monica kept like insisting. I'm like, all right, let's do it.
Good
It's your
job, Monica.
project. You run it. And it's a wildly popular program. Like CRC, CRA, they actually complement each other
Yeah.
because I do like sales call all the time. People call, especially now. It's like the last week to enroll. So CRA's call. And now I've gotten to the point for the CRA because of the CRC Academy. I think it's a better product because anyone with a medical background that's like an RN or already like working in the industry in healthcare, we kind of have them do CRA. I recommend CRA Academy, but anyone else, and this includes IMGs, IMGs are unique because they can go both. So I let them choose like which ones we have. But like anyone else who doesn't have a health background, they go to CRC Academy, which is
Yeah.
why you went to CRC Academy,
Mhm.
Samantha.
Exactly.
So they complement each other well. I think both have made like each individual product better because
Mhm.
of that. So again, Monica was
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
Monica seems to be right about a lot of things. She's super optimistic about things, but usually she's right.
Yeah.
Usually she's right.
He's on the
And
money,
if
man.
Monica's ever pessimistic about something, it's time to be worried. So are you pessimistic about anything right now, Monica? I need to know.
No.
Okay, good. Then
No,
we're good.
especially not today. We
What
had
about the
such a
industry, the
great
state of the
meetings.
industry? What are you pessimistic about the
No,
recession and what that's going to do to our
no, I'm
industry?
not. I'm not, because this industry, because of COVID, we got to the point that it's very stable financially. So it was on our benefit. I mean, and obviously, I mean, it helped a lot. Other drugs and other things to start getting developed. So I don't think it's gonna stop. And in fact, I mean, it's gonna be stable during this period. That's what I think. But that's
Okay.
because, again, because the COVID injected a lot of money in the industry.
Ah, I like
And
that pun, injected. I like the pun.
yeah.
I caught it. I caught it. Yeah, no,
Sure.
mRNA platform for sure. Like, regardless of what you feel about it, I have my own opinions too. But it's definitely something that is just the beginning, and it's just beginning to be researched. So, I think COVID was a way for the powers that be to test this new technology out. But it's just the beginning, guys. So that alone is enough to keep our industry busy. But
And it might, and also on top of that, because the technology that COVID brought, or the, because we were in the house or we couldn't go outside,
Mhm.
it got a lot of, I mean, it made the industry to push farther. um and it also opened the opportunity for other type of research. So I think it's actually even growing more.
yeah, and actually, Samantha's the perfect person to ask about that because your jobs, all your jobs in the industry so far, your two,
Yep.
the one with me and the one with where you
With
currently
Dana
are,
Faber.
with
Mhm.
Dana Faber, they've both been remote. So you don't even know the industry by going in person.
Yeah, no. It's kind of funny. So yeah, so my job with Dana Farber. So I technically work for like Dana Farber, but I also work a lot with like Harvard Cancer Center, because it's the Dana Farber Harvard Cancer Center, and then we do a lot of work with like partners. So pretty much all the big hospitals here in Boston, including like even MIT's research department. Like we work along with them, and I do all of it completely remote. I think, if the pandemic had never happened, my job would not have been remote. So, for example, I actually have a desk apparently over in one of the buildings. I've never seen it. I don't know what it looks like. Uh,
But it's there for
um,
you.
yeah, I have it, but like I have my laptop, and for me, I find like I only live like an 11-minute walk from Dana Farber. Like
Oh, so
I
if
can
you wanted to go, you could go.
Mhm. I could go,
Okay.
but I find it's just as easy, especially with like regulatory, in the way that my job works as regulatory, because it's very different from like private industry regulatory. I don't really need to be around people, which is like a double-edged sword. It's nice where it's like, oh, I don't have a commute, and I can sit in my PJs. But then it's also, like I don't get to have patient interactions.
Mm.
Uh, in fact, the I've only met patients randomly in public in scenarios that had nothing to do with work.
Wow.
Yeah, but so I do miss out on some of that. Not that I would have a lot as a regulatory coordinator, but I could go down and hang out with the CRCs, for example, if I were on
If you
campus.
wanted to, right?
And I can, like, I technically, again, I can go over there, but
And they know
um,
you, like you guys meet on Teams.
yeah,
Um,
we have a for my team. So my team, okay, I work as a regulatory coordinator for the breast oncology cohort studies department. So basically, we just focus on the really long term studies. We're mainly focused on like biobanking. So um, pretty much all the things I do are associated with protocols that are like collecting tissue samples or blood samples, things like that, from some of our breast cancer patients. Uh, and it's interesting because our department's pretty new, like only within the past few years. The studies are not. The studies are not new. These are really long term. Like, for example, there's a study I work on from the 90s that's still going. It started in the 90s. Um,
Wow.
but because of that, like the department has really, and this kind of ties into what you're talking about. Our department has like expanded exponentially within this year, right? It was really small, and we are getting new people constantly in my department. Like we have a whole bunch of CRCs now, whereas we only had a few, because they basically transferred our studies from like the trials department, where they might be dealing with IP, to its own department. Um, so like it's interesting because I'm simultaneously part of a fairly big team, but I also am part of a small team. So like me, another reg coordinator, and our two bosses, we meet like once a week on Zoom, talk about what's going on with regulatory,
Wow.
talk about what's going on with our studies.
There's
But
so
yeah,
many people like see pre-COVID and post-COVID almost like two different worlds in
yeah,
many respects, even in especially in research. Like there's so many people now who are looking for just remote positions.
yeah.
PPD has remote site monitor. One of our Latinos in clinical research co-founder Ashley Margot is in this role. She's been in that role for like almost 2 years now.
Mm,
Um, are you noticing that too, Monica? Students asking you like, "Hey, can I work remotely?" That I've had that
Yeah,
increase so much.
yeah, yeah, a lot. And in fact, believe it or not, there are many jobs for study coordinators remotely. I have,
mm,
in fact, in the Samantha's teams, in the internship, we put the students in teams, and basically all of the members of her team are working remotely, and all of them in as a coordinators or
mm.
regulatory.
Yeah. It's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally possible. It's kind of interesting. Like, one thing that I think is important to note is like regulatory positions in general have been like exploding, at least over here. Like, Boston is huge in terms of clinical research jobs because we have so many organizations here. Like, not just we have
All the
private
biotechs.
and
Oh,
every,
I
yeah, all
know.
the biotechs are over here. So, like if you go on LinkedIn and you type in like clinical research coordinator in Boston, you're going to get over 700 job postings, right? And it's been consistent and it's kept being like that. But I've noticed um, like regulatory positions are like expanding a lot. Like when we moved here, there were so many reg positions open at all of these different locations, both private and also at like research hospitals. And a lot of them are fully remote because there are so many of these tech companies that have made it possible to be fully remote. Like I never have to
Yeah.
handle physical paperwork,
And
for
these tech
example.
companies, so this actually leads to the segue of the state of the industry. And we're going to get to everyone's questions. Keep putting them on there, keep liking, keep sharing. Thank you. The state of the industry, we started when we started this live stream. The tech vendors are slowly taking over, but also the lines are getting blurred between sponsor CRO site vendor because that's what tech does. Tech integrates things like tech,
Mm,
at its
Mhm.
core, it's supposed to make things more efficient. So it integrates different components to kind of make it more seamless. That's why you're seeing the hope for decentralized clinical trials.
mm,
But what you are also seeing are a lot of like traveling coordinator roles, for example, or like you said,
mm,
regulatory roles. It's good and bad because there's two
Mhm.
extremes to this. There's the very high tech solution, which is like this whole DCT movement where billions of dollars are being poured into it. And then there's the sites that like Yuma Clinical Trials or like Monica's site uh, that are very low tech. I mean, we're adopting some tech, like our e-source that we
Like
use that
Creo.
you guys can talk about.
Hmm.
But it's still very low tech. Like our coordinator does everything. Our patients come in. Our coordinators are generalists, which is really what Monica trains for. And
Yeah.
then on the other extreme, you have like very streamlined, like, hey, you're just gonna do regulatory
Hmm.
and that's it. Or you're just going to be a traveling coordinator, and what that means is you're just going to collect the IP. And we have
Yeah.
a phlebotomist, we have everyone else go out to the patient. So there's like two different extremes kind of going away from each other, and the tech vendors are trying to put them together. But it's going to be
Mhm.
very interesting to see how this plays out because ultimately, I think the high tech solutions are good for the workflow, but they're not good for patient
Patients.
accrual,
Mm.
even
Yeah.
patient retention.
Mm.
No,
And so I think skill set like generalists, like Monica's teaching in CRC, is like even more important because should you get pigeonholed in one of these roles,
Yeah.
you still have the background. You're versatile. You can go to another
Mhm.
position and never get stuck in like one role because then what do you do when tech actually replaces that component of what you did, right? So always be moving, always be expanding.
Mhm. And that makes sense.
yeah, I was gonna say that that's why, I mean, in the class, a big part of research obviously is regulatory, and that's why
Mhm.
I tell the students that with the CRC Academy class, they can choose different careers. We just making them generalist.
Mhm.
We recommend the students to start working in small clinics because they're going to
Yeah.
wear all the hats possible to be more desirable in the industry, and then if they see that
Mhm.
something is I mean, they develop a knack for something or they feel joy doing a specific part and just go in that direction. Like Samantha,
Yeah.
I mean, Samantha is great in many ways,
Thank
but
you.
she's super organized, and regulatory is something that it suits your personality so well, really.
Yeah.
It's something that I can see you're great at that.
Thank you.
But she's versatile. Like if she were in our clinic, you know, she I could see her doing great with patient interactions
Oh,
too.
Oh, thanks.
yes.
Yeah. I, I would hope so. I mean, it's one thing that's really been interesting for me moving from the work that I was doing with Yuma clinical trials, which I still help out with when I can.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Though again, I mentioned this to Dan earlier. Like the CRCs he has at the site are so good now. Like I'm nah, I'm
Katie
not.
and Desiree. Shout out to Katie and
Yeah,
Desiree.
super big shout out to Katie and Desiree. They have, oof. But no, so it's been interesting because I was in Missouri when I was working for your site in Arizona, but just being able to use the online platform was huge. Uh, what's been interesting for me is like so the work that I do in regulatory here is completely different from the regulatory work that I did with you, right? And that Monica teaches because it's like and it's not even just because I'm in a medical center. It's because I'm dealing with the particular types of studies that I am. So, like for example, I don't touch 1572s. I don't see them. They're not a thing because there's no IP. So most of what I do for regulatory now is like I copy edit protocols. I do that a lot that are written by
Mm.
PIs because like our biobanks, most of the studies that we deal with are going to be like investigators. It's doctors who want to see if they can find something out about breast cancer. So they will specifically be requesting to use some of the samples from our biobank, right? And they usually write the protocols themselves. So I might go through and copy edit the
Wow.
protocol and like same with amendments. Because one thing that has been really helpful is since I don't have a scientific background, this sounds counterintuitive, but I swear, because I don't have a scientific background, I'm able to come back and be like, I don't understand what this paragraph means. And if
Yeah.
I don't understand what this paragraph means, then if there's someone on the IRB, because often IRBs will have members who do not have a scientific background. They're not going to understand what this means. And then, if you have a brand new CRC, they might not understand what this means yet. So I usually don't do much with the content, but I might make a statement or something like that so that they can expand it a little bit more. So I deal with that. And then I mainly do things with like our IRB. Like I do a lot of amendments and continuing reviews, things like that. I deal a lot with the staff list. I do a lot of things with organizing between the partners. So it's like a very different kind of
You see?
regulatory.
No,
Um,
but that's actually good because what you just said, I mean, and thank you for explaining because even I
yeah,
didn't really know what you do day to day
yeah,
over there at your new place. But what you said to some people may be like, oh, well, that sounds like, kind of very streamlined. Maybe it's not for me. Look, even if you're in a role like that, Samantha is like you have to see the bigger picture, guys. She could easily transition later if she wants to medical writer
yeah.
because that's essentially what she's doing, like
Yes.
medical writing, and not to mention all the stuff you're doing with the IRBs. So there's so much. Like, just get your foot in the door because once you're
Yeah.
in, and a lot of these questions are related to this. Once you're in,
Mhm.
you can pivot to where you actually want to be.
Yeah.
But beggars can't be choosers. Initially, you just take whatever you get. But then you have leverage once you start gaining that experience. And
Yeah.
Monica does such a good job teaching that in our course. I mean, how to be a general. She
She
shows
does.
you like everything, like the
Mhm.
whole overview. That was the point of this book. It's really to show you like the big picture of everything. And like
Mhm.
any chapter in here, you can like Google and go in depth. That wasn't the purpose of that book, but to show you the bigger picture because you got to see the bigger picture to know where you fit in and where you want to go.
Yeah. And it's what's funny is even though the work that I do now is so different than what I was doing for Yuma, where it was the more traditional regulatory work, right? Of like keeping all of the paperwork organized and together and properly filled out so that you can start up a study and continue the study, eventually finish on the study. but um, but it's interesting because of the work that I did with you. That's a big part of the reason I got the work that I have now. Like even in my interview, right? I was able to talk like I don't directly deal with EDCs, for example, in my current job at Dana Farber, right? However, some of our CRCs might. Some other people in our areas do. And so the fact that I was able to, in my interviews, talk about like, yeah, I deal with EDC, like not only does that show that I'm good at working with online platforms and making sure that everything is filled out correctly, which is huge for the IRB work that I do now. But it's like, I could talk about that. I was able to talk about keeping everything organized. Just being able to talk about the organizational skills is huge because I do that as well. Like I also in the background when I have time, I keep track of all the documents and make sure they're properly filed in our like drive. But it's again different documents, but
You can
still,
do anything you
um,
want. I see like clinical trial manager. I see anything you want to do,
Yeah,
Samantha.
I
thank
was actually even thinking regulatory affairs because you already now have different knowledge of the different kind of regulatory that is out there for research. So, I
you.
mean,
Oh, thanks. It's
you have so many paths that you can take your career
Thank you.
to.
I mean, I've been like, uh, so Daniel mentioned, and my friends say this all the time. So like, most of the people I know have started referring to me as a clinical research Hunbot, because because
A
I
what?
a Hunbot because I
How do you
treat it
spell this? Spelling and country of origin.
it's a slang term. It's a slang term. Because I basically
I'm old.
like when like you have that friend from high school that you haven't talked to in over 10 years and they write you and they're like, "Hey hun, like I am part of this multi-level marketing company and I want you to join and we're going to make so much
Ah, I
money."
see. Okay, I
That
got
yeah,
you.
so all of my friends are like, "You treat clinical research like that?" Like cuz I sell it to everybody now because
Thank
it's
you.
like
Wow.
because it's true. Like I it's one of these things where I've done a bunch of weird stuff in my past and I've had jobs that a lot of people would consider like really ooh like that's exotic or that's like really exciting, especially on the tourism side of things. And funny enough, like I am more happy in the clinical research industry than I was with probably any of my jobs. Like, I really enjoyed working for Dan. I super love my current job as well. Like, I really love it. It's like I finally found what,
Thank you so
what I
much for that
wanted to
soundbite.
do.
It's like Facebook advertisement gold. Thank you.
Oh,
I actually think research is like an addiction. I have not met anybody yet that has get into the industry that
mhm.
don't feel that connection. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I think the majority of people does. I mean,
There are
for
people
me,
that are
this is
feel
my
burnt
passion.
out though. There are people burnt out,
Mm,
and the thing with that is sometimes I hate to say it, but like you're in control of your situation, right? So
mhm.
I have people 10 years experience messaging me on TikTok saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm burnt out as a CRA. Um, I don't like this industry anymore." Do you realize you can go anywhere,
Yeah.
any other company,
Mhm.
and be happier? And there's this whole thing where yes, maybe because of the supply and demand, there's an unfortunate side to the CRO space where senior CRA promotions are being held off because to keep up with all the activity happening. So, like,
Huh.
if you were promised CTM, like, hey, just hold on real quick because we have all these studies, like, we have a shortage, but we'll get to you. And that burnout is real. So, I don't want people to get the wrong idea who haven't
Yeah.
set their foot in the door, but you have options. You
Mhm.
have options. And I'm so happy for you, Samantha, that you are in a place where you are truly happy. And like I was kidding about the soundbite, but we actually are going to use that soundbite
You can.
uh,
Dude,
for.
I will like rave on and on and on. If you want me to like record some promotional video, I'll do
Because
it.
I don't know about Hunbot, that sounds cool, but I think I was telling Daniel, you're like an ambassador to clinical research to
That's
others.
very sweet.
Like,
That's
yeah, I think it came out in our podcast. So,
I
any
know. I
thoughts,
was like,
Monica? We got these questions. Like, you
"Oh,
want to go through some of these?
Yeah,
Um,
let's do
sure.
it.
Yeah."
okay, Jay Davis. I have an extensive background in pharmaceuticals and quality assurance management. Excellent. I've been trying to break into clinical research. Thank you so much for your nice words. So you can, and he gets
Mhm.
into more specific. I should have read these before I put them on, but I'm in the process of interviewing
Nice.
for quality assurance analyst, and I want to use that experience to leverage a CRA role within a year. There's a shortage. If you go in there and you show them your transferable skills, I mean, you're already in pharmaceuticals. You
Hmm.
should be able to do it. It may not be your first interview, and don't get discouraged. Actually, that's something good to ask
Mhm.
Samantha.
Yes.
How many interviews did you have to do before you actually got somebody to say yes?
This one.
Yeah.
I got it.
Oh, just
I
one.
mean, for like,
Wow.
so yeah, I mean, like, so let's see.
Wow.
Um,
That's not the norm, by the way, guys.
yeah, it's, I mean, I think I lucked out. I mean, for Dana Farber, for the job specifically, I think I don't even know if I had an initial HR interview. I don't think I did. And then I had one with a project manager, and then I had the second interview with the senior director of my department. These are my two bosses. and
Wow. Hi,
and
boss. Hi,
yeah,
bosses.
I don't.
They don't
And then
watch.
usually I would have had an interview with the PI just to kind of say hi, but they wanted me to start like really quick, so we were just like, no, it's cool. I think the PI looked at my LinkedIn and was like, oh, it looks fine.
Wow.
And then I got called by HR, and like this is something that I think is important to note. It took a month for me to get my interview request, um, because apparently, like, somebody just like left my my CV on a desk in HR. My boss, my boss was like, "I am so sorry. I am so sorry. Like, I can't wait to talk to you. I'm sorry it's taken this long." I was like, "Oh no, I didn't know this isn't the norm. Like, this is not normal." And but I point that out because like I've been noticing with like the people that I know that are trying for jobs, like that can be kind of the norm. So like just because you haven't heard from somebody in like a month doesn't mean you're not going to actually hear from them. Like don't put all your eggs in that basket, right? Like keep applying for things, you know. But yeah, and this was the only job I really like. I tailored my CV and to Ashley Margot. Ashley Margot's
Wow.
CV advice and
Yes.
her LinkedIn advice. I can't,
And
man.
that's part of the class too.
Ashley Margot is special. Like you guys, you're Samantha special, Monica special, Ashley Margot special. Like it's interesting how where you fit, like you find a place in this
Mhm.
industry within the industry, and it also supports a lot of like side projects too. Like that's something people don't really talk about. I mean, it's called side hustles, like, but
Mhm.
like there's so many CRAs that I know that also are consultants, myself included. That was me also. So just really becoming a generalist is is the way to go. There's so many benefits to
Yeah.
that. RV Charity Drive says, "Welcome, Monica. Great to meet you. I like that Guru Nation's talking to each other. I got my first study today to lead JD. Okay, awesome. OCD
Oh,
organized is
Yeah.
amazing. You don't have to be that way either, but like I'm definitely not, but it still works. Any advice how to get first job as a CTA without experience? Ooh, Monica, that's like right up your alley. Ashley Margot
well, I will
loves
say
this.
that volunteering, maybe doing, I mean, it's just, you're not going to get as a CTA right away. I think, I mean, obviously, it could be the possibility, but if it's becoming difficult, I think the best way to go is the way I got into the industry as a recruiter. It's a great idea. Um, to go to start working in the industry. I will knock the doors in the small clinics. Remember that the small clinics always not always post the job opportunities in the platforms.
Mm,
So you need to go in person and knock the door, leave your CV,
wow,
sell
that's a good
yourself.
point. That's such a good point. Small clinics. Samantha probably remembers because she was my only employee at the time, and I was just dying in the clinic with only like two or three studies, and I was like, I could not find people to interview.
Yep.
I needed help. And literally, Monica, what you just said brought back memories to like this time last year. If somebody would have walked through the door and said, "Hey, I noticed you guys do research. Like, I don't know anything about it, but I would love to learn." Oh my god! Like hired on the spot. What I would actually do is a week of like having them shadow, and then I would see if I would hire them. But that's basically hired on the spot,
Yeah.
right? And such a good point,
Yeah.
Monica. Thank you. It's how quickly we forget because now I'm sitting pretty with two CRCs, but yeah, it was
Yeah.
ugly. Samantha knows.
Yeah. Oh, I remember it. It's that also makes me think like, so I get hit up a lot by LinkedIn recruiters now, or recruiters on LinkedIn
Mm,
now, um, because they're trying to find someone to fill usually a CRC position that's like short-term contract that could become long-term contract. Like I get a lot of those. So I think it's important, like those could be probably an easier way to get in because if it's a short-term contract, like there's not going to be necessarily as many people like scrounging to get those jobs. It fully depends, but it could be a really easy way to get in and show them like, hey, look at how amazing I picked up on all of this really quick. You need me long
mm,
term. And even if the contract ends after a few months, that's already experience to get your next job.
Yeah, now that that you mentioned that,
Mhm.
or that we were talking about this, I was thinking that even if you don't have a car, I'm gonna put it
Oh, yeah.
even easier.
yeah,
If
that's
you
a
don't
great
have a
comment,
car,
Eliana.
Mhm. That's a
thank
great comment.
you.
It's so true.
If you don't have a car, you can just go in clinicaltrials.gov, look for the clinics listed on the studies. You can look for a therapeutic area that you like. Let's say you have a family member that experiencing mental health issues, and you have an interest in mental health. Just go on Google. I mean, in the clinicaltrials.gov, look for the studies that have the specific condition, but look for the industry studies, because if you look for the government, then that's a little bit more difficult than going to knock the door. Okay, so if you want to find these small clinics, you go to the clinicaltrials.gov, look for the list of clinics in your area, look for the names. Oftentimes you find the emails and phone numbers. I mean, that's in the tip of your fingers. That's it.
Yeah. If you want to take it a step further, even I still do this to this day. I got a list of like potential studies from Julie. So like I'm fancy that way, but otherwise I'd be on clinicaltrials.gov looking also. I found 10 studies she sent me, like study leads, but one of them was I could tell it was a catch-all box. It was like admin at this biotech company.
Hmm.
So what did I do? I'm not going to email that. I went on LinkedIn. I put in that biotech company on there. And then I found like the top 2 or 3 people at that company because it was a small company, so I knew I could find them. And then I messaged them, and guess what? Within an hour, one of them called or replied back. The next day, we set up a Zoom conversation with me, my PI, and my business partner. This is a lady running a biotech company. They're like, "Yeah, we have a phase 2 starting next year. We'd love to get you guys." I gave her the whole pitch
See?
about Yuma.
Perfect.
So
Mhm.
I
everyone
mean,
does
you
it. Me too.
you
Like not
need to
just
be
job seekers.
creative. Yeah, but
Mhm.
I mean, for me, the best way to go if you're starting and if you really want to get exposed, go to small clinics.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
Small is
I
the new big.
guarantee you that some of those clinics are just really looking for somebody like you.
It's
Of
true.
course. Of
It's
course they
true.
are. Okay, we got which one? I need a Monica in my life. Okay, that's where we
Yeah, I
left
still
off.
love. It's true.
Eliana, thank you.
Do you know her? Do you know her?
No,
Oh, you got to connect. You got all right. In your
I
opinion, do you
will.
think the experience as a clinical research quality assurance analyst would be beneficial to transition into a CRA role? Yes, of course. Of course. I mean, CRAs come from all walks of life. So to already be in clinical research as a QA analyst, like whether you
Yeah,
call it QA or QC, what does the monitor do? Source data verification, source data review.
exactly.
And then they have
Mhm.
Mhm.
soft skills to make sure the sites are doing it because let's face it, Samantha and Monica, those queries are annoying as
Yep.
shit. And when those sponsors tell you, hey, you know what, like we have a database lock and they keep sending you the same freaking query. How dumb
Mhm.
were some of these queries, Samantha? Let's be real. Like tell
Yeah.
them how dumb some
I
of these
still
were.
remember some of them, and this was like 6 months ago, and I still remember some of these queries where
What's
they
a
were just
dumb
like,
one? Really dumb. Let's go. Like for crazy.
"Oh, what was it?"
Putting
Okay,
her on the spot.
there was one in particular where we did not know the start date of a medication for a subject who had screen failed. Okay, and that query got re-brought up 4 times. Like because I had to put like unknown, 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 all right, for the date. They put a query on it, and they're like, "No, we need to know the start date." I'm like, we don't have we
Wow.
haven't seen the subject, like, and then so I would respond, and then they would never reply, and then they would delete the query, restart the query, and I would reply and be like, now it's 2 months after we've seen the subject. Keep it like this lasted over 3 months on this one query about one subject that screen failed. So like there's no relevance anymore. Like it's not even relevant. But yes, so
Thank you for doing that. Not all heroes wear capes, and that was amazing. And to answer your question, Jay Davis, yes, you need some soft skills too to incorporate into it. So, and these heroes are getting smarter now with hiring. Like,
mm,
I know it's anecdotal, but when I started in '05, my CRAs were not necessarily the nicest people, and now they seem to be a lot nicer. And I think that's intentional. I don't think I'm lucky. I think that's actually intentional. Like Desiree and Katie, I was telling
Yeah,
them, you have like well-mannered CRAs. I used to have CRAs rip things off my wall, and tell
I
me
ha-
like this
I
yeah.
doesn't go there.
I have never had a CRA that was like that with me. Never.
You're lucky too.
Yeah,
So I think that's so
super
Jay Davis,
lucky.
the answer is yes. Go do it.
Mm,
Send me your resume. I'll take a look at it and see what you can change. LinkedIn user. How's it going, LinkedIn user? Oh, here's Johanna. We long time no talk
Ah,
there.
yes.
Make
I
sure
actually
people
have to.
understand.
Mhm.
Here's another LinkedIn user. What's the best way to get your foot in the door when you what Monica just told you? That's the way to do it. All right. Remote positions are increasing like never before. There's so many options, says Alicia. That's what I
Mm.
love about research.
Dan, hold
Go
on.
ahead.
I want
Yeah.
to on that one about like remote positions. I think
Okay.
I can definitely say any skills from your previous jobs that can be transferred into being useful in a research job, highlight those, like highlight them like crazy. For example, during the pandemic, I completely voluntarily, okay, this was not paid, this nothing. Myself and 6 or 7 of my colleagues from my previous masters got together and we wrote a book about like tourism before, during, and after COVID. Okay, just like a 200 something page PDF book.
You told me this, yes.
I ended up kind of taking over the role of the editor, partially because I was one of 2 native English speakers out of the 7 of us. And so, everyone was writing in English, but then I would like make it sound flowy. I would make it more flowing. And so, like, that book only got published through the university I had done my master's with, right? So it wasn't like super easily accessible. It was kind of, they ended up putting it behind like an info pay wall, if you know what I mean, where like you have
Mhm.
to give them all your information to be able to download it.
Behind the Hunbot.
Yeah, yeah, sure. But but it was something where I put that on my CV, and I was able to bring that up in my interviews. It's part of the reason I think, don't quote me, I'm not my bosses, but I think it did play a role in the fact that I got my current job, because again, I do a lot of copy editing on protocol.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you're
Yeah.
doing the same thing on a
Mhm.
protocol.
So, for me, I remember back in 2020 at the time, I was like, man, like I did this book for nothing. Like I wasn't paid for this. I wasn't nothing. And if I hadn't done that, like just being able to put that on my CV and highlight, like I was able to edit English languages from like the English language content and grammar from speakers of X number of languages. You know what I mean? Like just being able to put that on there, because again, had nothing to do with clinical research,
Mhm.
but it showed, and any kind of organizational things as well. Like I worked
Yeah, of
in a
course.
costume shop at a theme park. And so I put on my CV, like I used to be in charge of like safety pen duty, where I would literally have to count all the safety pens and organize them. I would like organize all of the fabric. We had over 1,500 bolts of fabric, and I had to organize them by like texture and color. So, I highlighted some of those like super organizational things. Um, so that's my main point is if you
No,
have
thank you.
things that they can fit and you might not even realize it.
Yeah, we were talking about that in a video with Anto. I think that the skills are transferable,
Mhm.
and now if I mean with those skills and then the knowledge of clinical research, I mean, what else do you want, right? It's just the
And the
perfect
industry is
recipe.
evolving, so like you don't even know what your skill set, like what you did 10 years ago, may not be. Maybe it's not relevant now, but who knows if it's going to be relevant in the future. I mean,
Yeah.
look at programming. You know,
Yes.
you would think that programming like 15 years ago, there was like no value to a site. Now we're using Creo.
Mhm.
Hey, it's great. I'm not going to program the e-source. It's like, but someone like
Daniel and
Daniel
I do
can
it.
do it. Why? Because
Mhm.
programming background. I mean,
Mhm.
you never know, guys. Like what you've achieved already and what you've done in your life. It matters, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
No matter
And
what it is.
yeah. And frankly, just like get to know the lingo, right? Like Monica stresses this. I remember you stress it all the time where it's like learn what things mean in clinical research. And if you can make it clear that you know what the things mean, that's going to make a huge difference. Like if you throw around EDC, for example, and you don't actually know what that means, it's going to be very obvious that you don't really know what it means typically. But like if you know and you really study it, like I'm always going to recommend going to the CRC Academy because I just really enjoyed my experience and I learned a lot. But even if you don't, like read Dan's book, watch all the videos from Dan from Latinos in Clinical Research, like watch it all, really learn it. It's
Yeah.
it
Learn,
helped me.
network,
It's helped me this
Exactly.
whole year.
learn, network, and apply. I think
Mm,
like true understanding means not just memorizing things and what they mean. It means how do they fit into other things,
yeah.
and that's really if you pay attention to like interview structures,
Hmm.
they're asking you like how do things fit into other things, like even if it's from your transferable skills. So it's always about integration. It's never just like a college exam. Like what does
Yeah.
this mean? Like
Yeah.
what does this mean in this context? Like if we have this issue.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's true. Yeah, so yeah, don't just go in and be like an EDC is an electronic data capture system. Like
Well,
don't.
some people will like watch a video like that and say,
Mhm.
"Okay, I know research," and then they'll go
Mhm.
interview and they'll fall on their face because they don't know the difference between a site CRO, sponsor, and a vendor.
Yeah, yeah. Which I can understand how it can get confusing. Like
Yeah,
it took a while to really fully grasp all the differences. It's all new things. But it can be done. I mean, even if you look at some examples of things you can do that are free, Viva, I think, is a good example. I have seen so many job postings that specifically want experience with Viva, specifically Viva.
wow.
And
See,
yeah, and I think Viva has a free like
Yes, they
trial.
do. Hmm.
Yeah, so even
if you're
even
a
if you
site,
just
right? You have to be a site. You can't just be
do
like a
you?
regular
No,
guy.
No.
no, but they have YouTube channel. They
Okay,
have
okay.
demos. So I've been sharing this with the students,
Okay.
and tell them about Viva because I know Viva has a lot of tools that are very useful in the industry.
Yeah.
And that's
So
another example. Like let's take my hypothetical that Vivo only gives it out free if you're a site.
mm,
So how hard is it for you to hustle on LinkedIn and say, "Hey, you know what? I'm thinking about starting a site. I'm
mhm.
interested in learning about Vivo." I mean, you think they're not gonna give it to you? First of all, nobody reaches out to them, right? Like
Yeah.
find somebody in charge of this. So there's
And they
always
give you
workarounds.
training.
They'll
They
give you
give you
Yeah.
training too.
training.
Yeah.
If you
They
ask
give you
nicely, they'll give you
training
a
and
certificate.
support and
Huh.
support. Yeah.
See,
But like
so
I say, they have a YouTube channel that you
mhm.
can go and take a look of all the demos.
They're
Yeah.
gonna hate us
So
now, telling them, "Hey, I'm considering a site," but it's a far removed
Yeah.
consideration from
Maybe
reality.
it's better to just do the YouTube channel, but like learn some of those things, even if it's just a little bit.
So Frida, yeah, we covered this. Frida, I'll see a lot of them are the same question as just themes. RV charity drive with my company. I did not even apply to be a CRC. I applied to be its site manager, and while I had every skill it wanted, I lacked one medical experience. Months later, they called me back to train as a CRC.
Okay.
see,
Yeah.
And then guess what? Next time you can be site
site
manager.
director. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
I started my first role as an unpaid CTA intern at Small Scale CRO.
Yeah.
Superstar content and guests. Thank you, Kate Shaw. I really appreciate it. That's how I got into research.
Hey.
Uh,
Awesome.
I'm a PV specialist. How can I transition my career in this industry? So safety is like the biggest issue in research, like the thing
Mhm.
everybody focuses on. All vendor, we just talked about all stakeholders, sponsor, CRO, sites, vendor. They all are focused on pharmacovigilance, on patient safety. So you can transition to any company. I mean, you have so many transferable skills. It's more a matter of what you want. Do you want to work from home? Do you want to work in the office? Do you like patient interaction? Do you like working with paperwork? You have to ask yourself a lot of these things. Unless you guys have a better answer.
No.
Anything is possible, okay? My question, where can I find public open clinical trials raw data away from clinicaltrials.gov? I don't think it's I'm
Wow.
not aware of any. I think it's just
Yeah, me
clinicaltrials.gov
too.
because they
Yeah.
are
Hmm.
required, sponsors are required to post their studies there.
Hmm.
And fortunately for us, we could see what's happening. And really, they're supposed to post their results. So back to the PV, right? You can get clinical trial results and you can look at all the safety issues and just expand your knowledge base of like, okay, for cardio studies, for the next wave of cardio, this is like the new class of drugs they seem to be researching. These were the main, like if you nerded out and like did an Excel sheet of all this stuff in whatever therapeutic area you're interested in, you should know, guys, if you're interested in a specific therapeutic area, you should know what's new, what's hot, what's the new technologies. Like if it's vaccine, everybody knows now mRNA. But let's say there wasn't a pandemic. How many people would actually know that? Only
I'd
the
never
ones who
heard of
looked
it.
Yeah,
at it,
nobody.
right?
I didn't know.
So every condition has this, like what's hot right now. And then when you go on an interview, you can say, hey, I know all about, like, I've been studying. I actually mapped it all out on this Excel sheet. I noticed that these SUSARs are consistent with this class of drugs, and then it didn't separate from placebo. You go in there and talk like that. I mean, how many people are going to tell you no?
Now, actually came to my mind another way that people can get to the industry if they don't have any background, and it's just that learning, for example, specifics about a condition. Let's say
Mm,
um, diabetes. So learning all kind of information about that specific condition can help you to become a pre-screener. So if you want
See,
to start pre-screening
oh,
patients, yeah.
this stuff is deep, guys.
Hmm.
It
yeah.
goes much deeper than surface level, you know.
Yeah.
Let's keep going to more of these questions. By the way, Samantha and Monica, thank you so much. Like, I know it's like a lot of time. I want to be mindful of you guys' time.
I'm fine.
As you
Don't
can
Yeah,
worry
see,
me.
about
Guru Nation gets revved up here. Like, I actually had to text Chris to make sure my fantasy players are playing today because, like, I don't want to miss out on my lineup, but hopefully Chris can do it.
Do we have more questions, Dan?
Yeah, there's a bunch. Um,
Let's check it
Here's
out.
one. I would love for someone to look at my CV due to having a nursing background. I need to tailor my resume. So yeah, send it
We
on over.
Margo.
recommend you to reach out to Ashley Margot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Send it to me. I'll look at it and then I'll give you like macro level. And then if you want like someone to actually do it, it's either in one of our academies or Ashley Margot does it on the side too.
Hmm.
These side gigs, guys. Just look around, you guys. All right, look around. It's like people are doing it. What we're talking about. Thanks, Dan. I sent you my CVS suggested. Thank you, Joshua. Appreciate it. I'll take a look. All right. I think that's it, actually. So, any like
Okay.
closing remarks, closing thoughts, or just anything?
I mean, if you're still considering the clinical research industry and you're still kind of hesitant, don't waste your time.
Yeah.
Do it. Do
Yeah.
it right now. This is no, I mean, obviously it's gonna sound kind of biased that I'm saying it because we're in this industry, because we provide the training and all of that. But there is no better time in this industry than now.
It's a little hunbot, but we'll accept it.
Yeah.
We'll
This.
accept it. Um,
Yeah.
to make it serious, though, all right, guys, this recession, we don't think, but we are not gods. We don't think our industry is going to be too impacted, especially at the site and zero level. All right. I'm not so sure about small biotech, but why take the chance? Why wait until interest rates go to like 11%? Right now, they're like 7 for a mortgage. Why wait longer? Like, you're just playing with fire at that point. Get in early, like now, because you never know what's going to happen in the future. And should the recession happen, and our industry does get impacted, unfortunately, you'll have experience.
Yeah.
So to me, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Oh
it's not a
yeah.
sales pitch, but it is. But it's also not.
I mean, I agree. As someone who was putting it off, because because I didn't think I would
Why
fit in
did you
the
put it
industry.
off?
I didn't think I'd fit in because I
Oh.
didn't have a STEM background at all. Like
So
I
what gave you that confidence to like no longer sit around?
Daniel.
Mm.
Okay, so it was a
So you
combination.
gotta have a good fiance then.
You got to have a good fiance. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, Daniel, because he knew about the industry, he would tell me, he's like, you think like a scientist. You need to try this. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I think like a scientist. My science background is horrible. I don't know anything. What are you talking about? But then I started to kind of finally pick up on it, what he meant, where like I do things really like analytically in a lot of ways, um, outside of any creative things. And then when everything happened with the pandemic, and actually it was watching what happened with the COVID vaccines. That's what
Mm.
really finally like kicked my butt into gear. Partially because I mean the tourism industry completely was dead. Right? I
Yeah.
had just finished a master's in sustainable tourism, and suddenly a lot of the things we were talking about at the time were irrelevant because people you couldn't travel. And so I started paying more attention to the clinical research industry and watching what happened with the COVID vaccines. And frankly, the fact that so many were able to be formed so quickly because of the research that had been happening for decades on mRNA, like that was kind of it for me. Because I'm like, wow, like I would love to be a part of something like that. I mean, that's how I feel even with my current job. Is it's like, yeah, I don't have the scientific background to be able to find cures for breast cancer, but if I can like help with some paperwork so that other people
You're
can,
contributing.
yeah,
You're contributing somehow.
yeah, like it's so it feels really nice, you know. It feels like I feel like it's been said that it's kind of a millennial stereotype to say like you want your work to have purpose or meaning, like you want to contribute something to the world. um and like I was one of those people, and now I actually feel like I am, you know. I'm not, again, I'm my name's not going to be on like placards anywhere. That's not going to happen, and I'm okay with that. I
Might be.
actually don't want that. But but like I love the fact that I can do something that just other people don't necessarily want to do, with like tedious looking at every single word and making sure it fits, or looking at forms and making sure they're filled out correctly. I enjoy doing things like that.
And that's your
um,
floor. That's your floor.
mhm,
That's the base
mhm.
level. So then
Yeah,
you
but
only
but
up
that's
Yeah,
the
from there.
thing. Even that makes a
you're
difference, right?
yeah, you're only being one
Mhm.
year. Only
Yeah,
been
not
one
even.
year.
That's
Yeah,
not even.
Not
exactly. Not
even.
even.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
even. Not even.
Mhm.
She's
So
probably been with
uh,
me 1 year at Yuma Clinical
Mm-mm,
Trials.
not yet.
Not
I
even.
started. I started with
Wow.
you in. Okay, so I started the CRC Academy in December. I started with Dan as an
November.
unpaid intern
Mhm.
in February, and then I started at Dana Farber on May 31st. So like
Wow.
that's the other thing. Actually, that's an important thing to note before we get off. Um, you can like move up through this industry really fast. I For everything I've done in the past, I've never seen anything like this. This is completely alien for me. But it genuinely is a thing. I mean, like I said, I like even now I get LinkedIn messages from recruiters, even with just the experience I have, less than a year. I get LinkedIn messages from recruiters asking me. I have had people ask, like, hey, can we put you up for this clinical trial manager position? And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Wow.
Right. Yeah.
I
Like,
was playing around with it earlier, like I see it in your future, but it's already being offered to you.
I'm okay with not doing that right now. I don't, no, 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 no.
But
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 if you
Samantha,
wanted to, you
honestly,
could.
I
If you
I
wanted
think
to,
you will
you
be
could.
great at that. Yeah.
oh, that's very sweet. Thank you. It's
Yes.
no, but I would love if anyone can like just take something away from hearing anything from me, like take that away. Like you don't have to have a huge background in this. You can like come in, and if you learn, like, and then you get in, just a little bit of experience is going to get the ball rolling really, really fast. So like like they said, like don't wait. If you're really interested, do it. Because the other thing is
Don't
too,
wait.
like if you get burnout, you can always come back if you want to, you know? Like I switched industries completely. I'm in my 30s. Like and you know, I could have switched even like maybe I don't like clinical research when I'm in my 50s, but frankly, even then, like there's so many different jobs in clinical research. There's
Yeah.
so many that, you know, if I get tired of regulatory, Who knows? Maybe I'll be like, I want to go be a CRA now. I don't know. Like that could happen in 5 years. Who knows, right?
That's much less wild than being going from tourism to regulatory
That's
coordinator.
true. That's true. That's
I
true.
mean, you're already there in the field, right? This is like you're
Mhm.
comparing like another game like on another planet versus
Yeah.
being in the same stadium, just
Hmm.
a different position.
But it would still be something new, you know,
Hmm.
like the same way that even my work at Dana Farber is so different from my work that I do with Yuma. They feel completely different, even though they both technically have regulatory in the title. It feels like completely different work, and I enjoy both a lot. But like that's one of my things. So okay, I used to work at the Jamestown Living History Museum in Williamsburg, Virginia. And they had a saying there. I was an interpreter, so like I was one of the people that dressed in costume and like told you about.
Really? We
I
gotta
worked.
have pictures of this.
Oh, I can send you them. Yeah,
Okay.
I worked in the area dedicated to like the Powhatan people, which is like Pocahontas's people. I worked there,
Wow.
and we had this saying that was called like, you. There's so many different ways to dig a hole, and so many different reasons to dig a hole. Because when you're doing interpretation like that, like you're standing there and you're talking about the same historical things every day, all the time, every day, right? And so they used to say, you know, switch it up sometimes, even if it's just to yourself, you're switching it up, right? Where, okay, well, you're used to having to talk about how they dug a hole. Cool. Well, maybe one day you can talk about how they dug a hole to like dig a grave, whereas the other day and then you can go off on that tangent, right? And like how death worked in
Mm.
this historical era, and maybe the next day you talk about how they dug a hole to put, you know, a fortress up, to start building a fortress, and then you can go off in that direction. And I like kind of bringing that into all of my workplaces, where it's like, even if you're doing the same kind of thing every day, sometimes you can internally spin it a little bit differently so that it brings the fun back to it. uh, I do that all the time with regulatory, where it's like, okay, well, let's see, like, how quickly can I get this person to do the correct GCP training, you know, like, or how can I rewrite my email to explain a process instead of explaining it the same way every time. It may sound kind of weird. I don't know if that helps anybody else, but for me, it's been a really helpful thing. Like, try to come at your job from different angles, and it can always seem kind of new. Mm.
Gives it a new meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Gives it a new meaning. You
That's
were talking
nice.
about digging holes, the really good book, Man's Search for Meaning.
Ooh.
He mentioned one of the cruelest things ever, being in Auschwitz. Auschwitz.
Mm-hmm.
He they were told to dig holes for no reason, and he said, believe it or not, after you've been tortured and like just having to do something where there's like no meaning for it is
Mm.
like one of the worst forms of torture. So it's just
That makes sense.
innately human, what
Mhm.
you described.
Yeah, to like kind of put a meaning on it. Yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
Hmm.
that's yeah. So I don't know. I
Wow,
know that
very
was
good.
helpful. Um, before we end the call, uh, sorry for my tiny shill,
Oh
but
yeah, let's do it.
yeah.
I forgot.
So Dana Farber, I'll put this in there just so that people know. So Dana Farber is considered like a world leader in cancer care. What is it? U.S. Newsweek ranked us fourth in cancer care in the world, and it's been that way for years. I think when I applied to my job, we were third. So like we're always in the top. Um, and a lot of like research pertaining to different cancers comes out of Dana Farber. So we have an organization called the Jimmy Fund. That's like our charitable fund. Funny story. It's actually named after this like kid from the 1940s who all he wanted was a TV. Like he was there because he had childhood cancer, and he just really wanted a TV so that he could watch the Boston Braves, because at the time it was the Braves, not the Red Sox. And so like people just started spreading the word that this kid wants this TV so he can watch baseball. And it ended up becoming like a national thing. And people were sending donations for Jimmy to be able to get a
Wow.
TV. That's how the Jimmy Fund formed. And it's kind of stuck around. What's really cool is in the 90s, Jimmy, that because that was not his real name. He's a kid. They're not going to give out the real name of a kid. But Jimmy actually came and became public. And he was in his 60s. He'd had like, it was like 6 grandkids. So he had survived because of the treatment he got at Dana-Farber. But so ever since the 40s, we've had the Jimmy Fund. And every year we do the Jimmy Fund Walk, which we're one of the only, besides the Boston Marathon, we're the only organization that can walk the same trail as the Boston Marathon. So I'll be doing that on Sunday.
Wow. Okay.
So if anyone would like to make donations to the Jimmy Fund walk, I can leave a link to my team if you want to. You don't have to, but
Yeah, do you have a
any of
link? We could put in the
yeah.
chat right now before we
Okay.
leave.
Yeah,
And
I'll
then,
have to find my link. But
okay.
yeah, like because all of the money goes directly towards either funding our research or actually going
Okay.
directly to patient care. So, and I think you may be able to even
That's good.
allocate if you want to. So, yeah,
We'll
if
put
you
the link underneath the
would like
YouTube
to do that.
video
Okay.
when you guys watch the replay on YouTube. Hi, YouTubers from the future.
Hi.
And
Thank
then if
you
you're
for
on LinkedIn,
letting me
just message Samantha and um, she
Okay.
can give you the link to you. But
Yeah.
no, that's awesome, Samantha. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you for letting me mention that.
And that connects it back to meaning, right?
Mhm.
Like, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, actually, sorry. I'm sorry if you guys need to go, but you just brain.
Well, we have
Um,
one more too, so
oh,
no problem. No worries. But do yours first,
yeah.
then we'll get to this.
I was gonna say, um, having a meaning also helps in interviews. That helps. If you can
Mm,
figure out a meaning behind why you're applying to a job, helps a lot. Like for me, I had a friend a childhood friend who unfortunately passed away from metastatic breast cancer in when she was 29. And so, like, that's part of the reason that I did apply to my current job because I had the
mm,
experience, right? And I also had like family members who have had cancer. And so I had that experience, right? It's like what Monica mentioned, where if you have experience around like mental illness, even having loved ones that have mental illness, and you can mention that, right? Like obviously you don't have to like go super in depth, but if you can say like part of the reason I'm applying to this is that I had this friend who passed, and it would be great to carry on with work that could save people in the future. Going to have a lot of meaning. Um, so throwing that out there too, like if you don't have experience but you have like a reason to have passion for the job, helps you. I
Yeah,
think.
I think it's great. And for Sabri, that works for her, that she's doing an interview in cardiology department. I will read about cardiology as
Mhm.
much as I can. If you already have experience as a
Yeah.
CRC, I will read about cardiology.
And
Yes.
even if you have experience in cardiology, right? Go on clinicaltrials.gov, look at the latest happenings as far as research is
Mm-hmm.
concerned. Again, class of drugs, mechanism of action,
Mhm.
common side effects, contraindications. Break it down with the SUSARs. Know that stuff. It's going to put you so much further ahead than somebody who comes in there and just doesn't know any of that stuff. I mean, can you imagine
Yeah.
like interviewing 10 people and one of them came with like all these things as a CRC?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. You're going
Crazy.
to definitely
Awesome.
stand in the crowd.
do your
Yeah.
homework. Do your homework. Put in the work, and then you'll shine through. Thank you guys, Samantha
Thank
and Monica.
you.
This was a very easy
Thank you.
live stream to do with you two.
Oh, good.
Thank you. Thank you so
Glad to
much.
hear that.
Like, subscribe, comment, share, everybody. Bye bye.